Joe here. I thought I'd make a short video on some albums that I picked up recently when I visited California. It had been over a year since I visited my family in California, so of course it was a great time to see my daughter and my mom after the lockdown that took place last year. But one of the perks of also going to California is hitting the record stores, and here's what I scored. First up is Milt Jackson, Goodbye, on the CTI label. I've been really getting into CTI more so in the last couple months, and I've always enjoyed CTI music. Of course, there's Freddie Hubbard and Stanley Turrentine and many others, great albums there. One of my favorites, of course, is Red Clay. But I've always enjoyed the vibes, and especially the vibes of Milt Jackson. And this is a very excellent album. And he also has Ron Carter, of course, who's on many CTI sessions. Billy Cobham on drums, Steve Gadd on some of the other tracks. And of course, Herbie Hancock, who's also on many CTI dates. Freddie Hubbard appears on a couple of tracks, as Cedar Walton, too, also on piano. But what's really nice about this album is that it's no strings or no extra horns. It's strictly a small group throughout, and it's very tasty indeed. It's called Goodbye, and it's got a great track of Detour Ahead. That's one of my favorite tracks so far. Milt Jackson, Goodbye. Chet Baker, In New York. This was actually picked up on Record Store Day at Moldy Toes Records in San Clemente, California. And I really didn't have my eyes on any Record Store Day releases per se. Of course, everybody wanted Quiet Kenny, the jazz fans. And I did have my eye on it, but by the time I got into the store, it was gone. And so I didn't, like I said, I didn't have any other Record Store Day releases that I really needed. But I'm a big fan of Chet Baker, and this is an excellent album on the Riverside label. This is a craft release, and so it's very well done. It's a really good release, and the pressing is super quiet. And once again, this is Chet Baker and Riverside going to New York and playing with some of the New York cats. Among them is Johnny Griffin, and I believe it's Kenny Drew on piano, Philly Joe Jones, and Al Haig, Paul Chambers, basically the Miles rhythm section to an extent. And Chet is in great shape on this one. One of my favorite tunes on this one is When Lights Are Low. And I couldn't be more than, I'm very happy I picked this one up at Moldy Toes Records on Record Store Day. Another one from Record Store Day scores at Moldy Toes is Jim Hall Concerto. And of course, this also features Chet Baker. And this is probably one of my favorite CTI releases of all time. It's just outstanding. Jim Hall, Chet, and Paul Desmond, Roland Hanna, and Steve Gadd on drums. And just every song is just outstanding. Every solo is spot on. And then, of course, you got the long version of Concerto, Concerto de Aranjuez, the one that Miles made famous on Sketches of Spain. And here they do an outstanding version also with Chet taking a great solo, Jim Hall. And this is kind of a weird release. It's on the cover is brown. The original is a blue gatefold. This one is no gatefold, but the pressing is excellent. And I'm just glad to have Jim Hall Concerto back in the collection. The other one picked up at Moldy Toes is one of these Milestones double album releases. And this one is called Mongo Santa Maria, the Watermelon Man. And early Mongo is outstanding. I really got turned on to Mongo Santa Maria in a big way by a close friend, Poncho Sanchez, who was the conga player with Cal Jader at the time. And later on went to lead his own bands for a long, impressive career, still active today. But we would often go and hear Mongo at Concerts by the Sea in Redondo Beach, California. And actually, I got to hang out and speak with Mongo. I even have a picture with me, Mongo, and Pancho. And anyways, this is one of his early releases with the hit Watermelon Man. And also, the second disc is Live at the Village Gate with a red hot band with Mongo and Marty Schaller on trumpet. Just a great album, and I'm glad these double albums from Milestones are winners in my book all the time. Johnny Hammond, Breakout. I've always enjoyed the work of organ player Johnny Hammond. I think this was the first one he ever did on Kazoo. This is number 1, and this, of course, he's playing some of the tunes that made him famous at that time. He does the version of It's Too Late by Carole King, Never Can Say Goodbye, Working on a Groovy Thing. And it's just an outstanding groove from beginning to end with Hank Crawford, Grover Washington Jr., Eric Gale, Airto on percussion. Airto really shines, especially on the first cut of It's Too Late. You can really hear his shakes and rattles and the various sounds, and it really adds to the music in a great way. This album is not in too bad a shape. A couple of tracks, especially Never Can Say Goodbye, shows some slight wear. And if I ever find a great copy of this one, a cleaner copy, I'm going to pick it up. This is another album I picked up, Dave Pike, Times Out of Mind. Just as I started off with Milt Jackson as a vibraphonist, Dave Pike also is a vibraphone player. And he's kind of one of the lesser known. He did make an album with Bill Evans at one point. And at this time of his career, I believe this was the late 70s, he was playing concerts at a small little nightclub in Huntington Beach called Hungry Joe's. And I did have the pleasure at times of going to Hungry Joe's to see another vibe player, Cal Jader. And it was just such a great place to hear jazz music. It was right there on Coast Highway, and just a small little place, and the bands were always cooking. And this particular album by Dave Pike, they used to get quite a bit of airplay on the old jazz station, KLON, out of Long Beach. And I always enjoyed it. I actually had it in my original collection. And it's kind of some like Brazilian type grooves in place. There is some hints of synthesizers at times that kind of hint at the time it was recorded. But overall, it's just a great album. Kind of gives you that feel of almost cruising down Coast Highway in the evening. Just a great feel. I really enjoy the work of Dave Pike on this one. Hadley Callum, Projecting. Hadley Callum might not be known to many of you, but he was in Southern California for quite some time in the 60s and 70s until he finally moved up to, I believe, Seattle, Washington, and then he eventually passed in 2010. But he was an outstanding tenor sax player and flutist, and he made a couple albums on the mainstream album that are becoming quite popular among people who are digging for that sound of jazz. But he's, like I say, he's an excellent tenor sax player. And here he's sounding great as usual. And this is on the Catalyst label. It's one that he made after, I believe, after he left mainstream. And for those who might not be familiar with him, but listen to Santana or Malo, he takes a great solo on the second Malo album, Dos. And you might want to check that out if you happen to have that album. But Hadley Callum, outstanding. And finally, when I was in California, I did pick up a tone poet. Of course, this one is very popular right now. Dexter Gordon, One Flight Up. A lot has been said about this album. It is one of the great Blue Note albums of all time. And what can you say about tone poet? They're always great. And I'm just glad to have this one. Of course, it's beautiful gatefold album, and can't wait to dig into it more. Normally when I go to California, I try to mainly get jazz albums because they're a lot less expensive. There's more of them available in California than the place where I live in Texas. But I did pick up a couple of non-jazz albums, and in a way, they both have themes of tech because they're both bands or musicians from Texas. And first of all is Doug Sahm, Hell of a Spell. I've been a Doug Sahm fan for many, many years. I was fortunate to hear Sam play live on many occasions. And I was very deeply saddened when he passed because he was just always such a fun guy to either to hear with his groups or the Sir Douglas Quintet. This finds him kind of in a blues groove. He has a big horn section on board. He does some great versions of Nothing But the Blues, Ain't Into Letting You Go. Some Bobby, they're kind of like Bobby Bland type Texas shuffles. Great album, Doug Sahm. And last but not least, the Fabulous Thunderbirds. What's the Word? Of course, another Texas band, Kim Wilson. And on this one, it's an early album, so of course it's featuring Stevie Ray Vaughan's brother, Jimmy Vaughn. And once again, I'm a big fan of Jimmy Ray Vaughan, perhaps even more so than Stevie. I always just find his solos so economical and compact and tasty. Once again, I was fortunate to hear this version of the band back in the day, and they just literally blew the roof off the small club that they were playing at. And this is really just such a good smoking blues album. The Fabulous Thunderbird, What's the Word? So that'll do it for now. You get an idea of what I picked up in California. Have a great day.